It's been completed, approved the minutes, keep discussion. All in favor of the motion to approve consent calendar, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our second matter of business is appearance of visitors. We have no visitors today to speak, right? Our third matter of business is instruction, and Ms. Doolin will be chairing this section. Ms. Doolin, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning. Item 3.01 is artificial intelligence in Greenville County Schools. It's going to be presented by Dr. Stevens, but Dr. Royster, did you want to say anything first?
Yes, just briefly, Ms. Doolin, thank you. This presentation this morning is an opportunity to present to you what we're currently doing related to the use of artificial intelligence. This is primarily centered on the instructional uses. Dr. Stevens will touch briefly on some of the administrative uses as well. Artificial intelligence offers tremendous opportunity for us to, one, ease the work burden for our teachers. Secondly, and these are not necessarily in order of importance, but secondly, to provide our students training for what they will need to know as they move forward, whether they go next into a career or into college. Third, it provides a way to enhance the level of instruction that occurs within the classroom. I think you'll see several examples of that in this presentation of how this can encourage critical thinking. It can encourage and help students to form topics for debate. Fourth, it provides all of this inside a structured environment, which is extremely important in dealing, obviously, with anything that gives access to all the things that are out there on the World Wide Web, that are out there in the land of artificial intelligence. Fifth, and I think probably most important in all of this, in how to utilize this as a tool and to utilize it ethically and appropriately. Now, obviously, we're very new in this, as are most school districts. And so some of the things that Susan will talk about are being piloted. Some things are being rolled out. You may recall the board in our budget, I guess that was 2 years ago, investing in a tool for teachers to use to help them with management and clerical type task, AI tool. That was kind of the beginnings of this. So this is, to a degree, sort of an update on where we are and in line with our strategic plan from the 24-29 timeframe, where we look to be going and the progress we have made along that pathway. In some cases, it's considerable progress. In other cases, it's just sort of the beginning steps. Dr. Stevens.
Thank you. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to give you an overview of our strategic implementation of artificial intelligence, specifically in the secondary grade levels, and specifically as it relates to a pre-identified learning resource. As Dr. Royster mentioned, our recent graduates who are entering the workforce or college with digital literacy or AI proficiency are an advantage right now. But we do know from market analysis that those skill sets are going to be a requirement for college and career readiness in the very near future. So our objective is to create that safe and secure, very controlled environment and identify vetted resources to allow students to engage in that learning and to be able to practice with those resources so that they are able to embrace those opportunities as they move forward. So as we begin today, it's important that we emphasize and overemphasize our stance in terms of AI use. Greenville County academics, as Dr. Royster mentioned, believe that AI is a resource, it is not a replacement. It is an opportunity for teachers to use those resources and those tools to enhance learning, to give students opportunities to engage with learning in a different way, but it is not a replacement for and should never be a replacement for human thinking or teacher-led instruction. That first and foremost is our primary objective, to ensure that our teachers are providing high-quality instruction, direct instruction to students, and that any resource, be it AI or books or materials in a classroom, are just that. They are supplementary resources, they are not replacements. So as we discuss the specific types of artificial intelligence, there's a lot of lingo and jargon with any tech field. But these are the two most predominant references or types of AI that you see frequently, generative AI and predictive AI. And they're pretty self-explanatory, but generative AI is something that generates an output. The system is provided with information or prompts, guides, and then the system goes out and it harvests data from millions of different resources and sites and compiles that into a product that it presents to the user. Predictive AI is more likely used for data analysis and trend analysis. It's used for some deep research, and it has very different target audience. So as we're talking about AI, the one that most people are familiar with is generative AI, and most common users are using a version of ChatGPT, which is a form of generative AI. Moving forward today, though, it is really important to note from the onset that the resource that we are discussing is not ChatGPT. It is a form of generative AI tool, but the parameters and the accessibility for students are dramatically different than what people who use ChatGPT experience. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. When we talk about generative AI, I was trying to think about a way to illustrate it that kind of made sense. If you think about generative AI as someone who uses Legos, most of us have children or grandchildren. So if you're building with Legos and you have an infinite amount of Legos in the world and you tell the system to build a castle, that system would look at all those different Legos, all the different shapes, colors, sizes. It would look at pictures, it would look at models, it would look at templates, and then it would generate and build a castle using those Legos. The resource that we're going to talk about does something similar, except in our case, the teacher has created the box of Legos that students can access. The teachers have created the resource, and they've put very strict limitations on what students can use and what students can get to. So we'll look at some examples of that in just a second. When we talk about our strategic implementation and the use of that resource, we are looking predominantly at our 6th through 12th grade students. We are, of course, aligning with our board policy, and we are looking at augmenting, not replacing instruction. We are looking at the enhancement of instruction versus looking at the replacement of any teacher-led instruction. It is a focus on students engaging with content. It is not just another opportunity for students to search content. It is really a tool that is specific to allow students to challenge their thinking and engage in content differently. And as always, we have a commitment to train our students to be excellent digital citizens and to train them about what is the appropriate use of technology and what is the ethical use of technology. So to date, we have actually concluded pilot programs in 2 of our schools, Rudolph Gordon in grades 6 through 8 and in Fountain in high school. And we'll talk a little bit about the specifics of those pilots in just a second. But we also are excited to announce that we have 2 course offerings beginning this year at Riverside High School and at Woodmont High School. And those courses, of course, our standards are aligned with the South Carolina Artificial Intelligence Standards, and those are offerings that have exceptional syllabus and very defined units of study available. So we are excited about those and the outcome of those this year. So this is our specific resource that we have identified to move forward with our AI implementation. So again, student safety and secure environment is our primary concern anytime that we are using any sort of resource. So Magic School AI was selected for very specific reasons. First and foremost, it is an educator-built platform. It was built for educators by educators. There are built-in safety measures. So thinking back to that Lego illustration, instead of having access to every Lego and every model and every source of information, in this case, the student would only have access to a very small number of Legos to build with and a very clear model to build using those Legos. So the teacher has to go through a series of steps to create the lesson, to create the resources, and then to connect the student specifically with this tool. And we'll take a very close look at that in just a minute. As Dr. Royster mentioned, there are teacher productivity elements built into this platform. So not only are teachers able to use it to differentiate learning and to allow students to engage with content, they can use the exact same tool for themselves to be able to expedite lesson planning and differentiation for students. These are some of the specific access features that Magic School offers. So specifically, as mentioned before, teachers define and specify the tools that students have access to within the system. Teachers control when and how Magic School is made available to students, when they can access that resource. Teachers define the parameters for the content and the chat bots, and we will take a very close look at one of those here. Teachers review student prompts as well as all generated responses. So Magic School AI is a closed system, meaning that all student responses, all entries that a student enters into the system, all of that is monitored by teachers at all times. Students cannot access Magic School unless it is assigned to them by a teacher. So that has to be pushed out through Google Classroom or through a URL or through a QR code. And that can only be pushed out to a student who has been assigned a specific tool and a specific assignment through that Magic School system. Access to Magic School has to be, again, created through that teacher-created link. It is limited to the educational tools that teachers enable, and students cannot just use it for a free search. It is not ChatGPT where they can go in and type in anything. There are very clear parameters for what a student can enter into the system, and as I mentioned before, there are very clear limitations on what information sources are referenced in the system to be able to provide a response. So it is a very, very controlled system. This is a little difficult to read, but I wanted to provide you with a screenshot of what it looks like on the teacher side when they create a class. So a teacher has to go into the system and create and assign students to a specific class themselves. So they roster that. They can differentiate that any way that they need to. They can use this for small group. They could use it for individual assignments. They could use it for remediation or for extension opportunities. But the teacher has to create that class and has to assign those students to that class in order for the student to ever be able to access Magic School. Once the teacher creates the class, they have to assign the specific tools necessary for that assignment. So again, if a teacher is assigning something in literacy and they have a specific task for students to do, they would look at that menu and identify which of the specific tools would be relevant for that assignment, and they would push out only those tools relevant for those students for that task. And lastly, this is what it looks like in order for a teacher to be able to invite a student to access the tool. We actually have a URL that sometimes they'll push out into Google Classroom, or sometimes they'll just embed a QR code right into their slide. Again, just to reiterate, student safety is our critical concern anytime we're dealing with any sort of a resource, and this is no different. So we have a built-in digital citizenship curriculum built directly into that platform. There are training videos, modules that we also have embedded into our curriculum maps. We have a teacher ability to monitor those prompts and responses that are received from the system. We have very strict usage guidelines. I think that you've seen from the previous slides. It is impossible for a student to access this resource unless deliberately assigned an assignment and a tool by a teacher. Again, it is a closed system. This is not an access to the World Wide Web of infinite information. This is a very controlled opportunity for students to be able to access information. The system does not do target advertising to students, and it does not do any AI training on student data or information. So again, because of the way that students are accessed, this is not an app. So students are only joining this, using this tool by invitation. There's no student data actually entered into that system. And because of that, the AI, there is no training. It is not learning students to be able to use that for future responses, as some other AI programs use. ChatGPT does do that. It uses user input to define how it's going to respond to questions in the future. This system does not do that. So I wanted to show you a couple statements from our pilots. These are our statements given to us specifically from our high schoolers. And the tool that they were using with Magic School AI was a debate tool. It was a tool where they had read a literacy piece, a piece of literature, and they were tasked with creating an argument on one side of an issue. And the tool prompted them to go back into the text to collect evidence for the other side of the issue. So again, the teacher in this case had entered information about the actual article, the information that was entered. The prompts that students could put into this system were limited to that text. And all of those responses, the information that students may have asked for clarifying information, or in this case, they could have asked the prompt that I've taken the position of X, so help me find evidence that shows the opposite side of that. And this chatbot would help it be able to identify that. But again, it's not doing the thinking for the student. It will prompt them to read specific paragraphs to be able to pull that information out themselves. It does not provide the student with the information. It guides them to where they can find that information and then analyze it themselves. So that's a very important point, in that, as with any tool that we are using, we want to make sure that students are not using it as a shortcut to dilute learning, but really as an opportunity to become critical thinkers. And this tool helps them do that in a much more efficient way. Here are some additional statements. I love the last one. I told Dr. Royster that that is my favorite quote, that it makes school more immersive and more interactive. And I think the reality that we have to face is that most students these days, even though we don't have cell phones in the classroom, students are used to having immediate, instantaneous feedback and engagement with digital media at all times in all aspects of their life. And we have control systems in place for that during our instructional day, but the reality is that their brains are trained to that pace and to that format. And so having the opportunity to create a specific resource and tool that allows them to engage in the kind of learning that they're proficient at, it's actually playing to their strengths. And it's engaging them in a way that we are not typically seeing in some of our other delivery methods. So as with any opportunity, before we scale up, we want to make sure that we are very intentional in our planning. In order to be able to be successful in continuing our pilots and taking those into other locations, we needed to make sure that our teacher training was explicit and that it was high quality. So we had, at this point, allowed all teachers to go through Magic School training. They have participated in training that has been conducted by our instructional technology team. And many of them also participated in summer academy opportunities, and you'll hear about some of those from Ms. Kapp in just a few minutes. In addition to teacher training, which we know right now is at the foundational level, we know as teachers become more proficient with the tool, we will have to continuously up our game to meet their needs and to keep them engaged and keep our teachers on track. I should say, learn along with our teachers. We need to make sure that our communication with parents is very transparent and it is very clear about what resources their students have access to and what those resources look like. So parent communication is another critical point for us. Student orientation, as with any resource, what are the expectations for student use? How will we be monitoring that? And then ultimately, how are we going to know if we're successful? Here's a little bit more about the specifics with teacher training. Again, there is a responsible AI use agreement that we have in place for teachers and students. To reiterate, not a replacement for instruction. At no point should we walk into a classroom and see a classroom that looks like some AI or some computer program is responsible for the student learning. That is not our intent, and that is not our expectation. So in addition to that, we also have curriculum resources and maps in place that very explicitly outline the resources and how they can be used. These resources are already built into some of our units of study, and they are already available to our teachers. So once they have completed their teacher training and students have completed their portion of the orientation, teachers can begin to assign those students to those specific assignments. Here's more information about our parent communication. So very detailed introductory letters went home from school, from the school within the school syllabus, the school handbook, as well as an information letter from Magic School that had information about the platform, about the safety components of it, and about how we were using it in Greenville County Schools. In addition to that, we, of course, allow parents to have access to come and see from our side what the student sees. They can either speak with school leadership if they have any concerns. And then we also have a dedicated website specific for parent resources regarding artificial intelligence. And our team is continuing to expand that work. We have an opportunity over the next year as we continue to expand this pilot and expand this resource. We have the opportunity to develop some stakeholder feedback opportunities to ensure that we are continuing to meet the needs of our students and our families. The student orientation includes modules that are online, as well as specific training that takes place in the classroom with the teacher. That also focuses on that digital citizenship piece. Again, our intent with this program is for students to understand what AI is and how to use it responsibly and ethically. It is not to allow them free reign or free use of AI to go outside of the expectations of the assignment. But we also want to make sure that when they are not with us and they are home or they're on devices on the weekend, that they have an understanding of what the expectations for digital citizenship are. Our curriculum integration includes these very explicit steps. We are already in the implementation for our core curriculum areas and our curriculum maps. We are looking at cross-curriculum applications. So again, the high school course is a great example of that, where it's got units of study that are embedded to a variety of different career tracks. Our grade appropriate content is critically important to us. If you notice, our focus is on secondary students at this time, grades 6 through 8. We just believe that that is age appropriate considering the developmental needs of students. And we know that at that age, that students have a technology proficiency that's a little stronger than elementary students, and it gives us the opportunity to be more intentional with the assignments that teachers are creating. And our success metrics are these. We continue to collect teacher and student feedback to ensure that we are meeting the targets for our learners. We are meeting our curriculum targets. We have some power standards that are associated with some of this work, so we will be monitoring that as well. But most importantly, ensuring that we have a safe, secure, and controlled environment for our students to continue to learn that can be replicated in every school setting. One of the other additional resources that we provide to our families in our district is our partnership with Smart Social. And if you're not familiar with this, this is a fantastic resource. We have a partnership with them where every month they offer live online sessions specific to Greenville County families and students. Again, this is by invitation only. Our students are not rostered into this. Our students receive a code that they share with their families. The families can log in and join, and we have one scheduled for this evening, and the topic this evening is actually artificial intelligence and the appropriate safe use of that. So we will have an hour session this evening with our families. It is free to register. Our families win prizes, and they have the opportunity to hear from each month a different Greenville County school leader who is working with Smart Social on the delivery of that information. So it's an excellent free resource for our families, and we would love for you to join if you're available, and also for anyone who would like to join using that registration link. We have a dedicated team of our instructional technology department that continues to work on this. And as mentioned, over the course of the next year especially, we're going to look for opportunities to inspect our scale up and the quality of the program that we have in place. We're going to look for opportunities for some additional stakeholder data. And we are studying other large districts in the United States who have some model programs in place, and they are probably 6 to 8 months ahead of us in their implementation phase. So we are following them very closely and trying to learn from their successes and equally learn from their missteps. In addition to that, Dr. Royster mentioned we have some departmental use of artificial intelligence in Greenville County. And so these are outside of student access. These are things that teachers may use or department heads may use. And these are some of the specific ways that we use AI to expedite our work. Specifically, our data and accountability team, Dr. McCurry's team, uses AI a lot for trend analysis. You can put a lot of data very quickly into a program, and it can pick out some historical trends and some predictive trends for us. Workflow automation, a lot of our departments are using this to track the movement of paperwork processes and to expedite that as well. Our communications team uses that. I know that our principals have learned that they can use it a lot, sometimes to improve the tone of their emails or their parent messaging and things like that. In addition to that, we have, of course, our academic specialists are using it for evaluation of standards and coming up with creative and innovative ideas for instructional delivery. And then we're also using it for coaching and feedback, as our principals and assistant principals are providing feedback to teachers on standards, especially at the high school level. You know that you very well may not have been an honors chemistry teacher yourself, and it's difficult to provide quality feedback to that teacher. And so we have resources provided to those administrators not to be able to replicate the understanding of an honors chemistry teacher, but to be able to provide feedback that is targeted to those standards and that actually makes sense for that teacher to be reflective upon. So we're really excited about the use of those things. Those, as we continue to learn about AI and the appropriate use of that, we will continue to use those in a variety of different ways. What questions may I answer for you?
Thank you for that. Sounds like we have a lot of questions. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. Is this going to be implemented in all high schools and middle schools?
So Magic School AI is an available resource. If teachers complete the training and teachers feel that it is a fit for their content and the specific standards, then they have access to push that out if it is relevant to the work.
So how much time is involved for a teacher to go through the training and be certified?
There's not a certification process.
Okay.
So our training for them was anywhere from an hour. We've got some that have participated in summer training for additional learning for upwards of 4, 5, 6 hours. The modules themselves, most teachers are up and running in less than an hour or two.
Okay. So you've already started it in 2 schools.
The courses are available. There's high school courses available in 2 schools, but the resource itself is available in all middle and high schools.
All of them. And so are all the teachers qualified to do this in every high school and middle school?
They have received the training to do it. It is not a required resource.
Okay.
It is a resource available for teachers to utilize if it meets the objectives of their class.
And I think it's really important that the parents and students can get on this interactive virtual session tonight.
Absolutely.
Tonight at 7 p.m.
I agree.
So that gives them an opportunity to learn what is being done, and that this is not replacing, but this is enhancing. Very good. Thank you so much.
Dr. Presley.
Thank you so much for this presentation. First of all, we better get on the train because it's left the station. So I'm very glad that we're taking a proactive stance on this and teaching them how to use it in a healthy way. I thought that was my phone for a minute or something. Okay.
It is not AI. It is not AI.
It's not AI. I don't know, because I can mention something in the presence of this, and the next day 5 ads pop up in my phone. Anyway, the counterclaim scaffold,
Yes.
okay? Is it still 612? Is that where it appears
Yes.
in the ELA standards?
Yes.
And we all know that wrestling with that is one of the toughest things for our students, and just based on that, the response, which was very powerful from the student on this, helped me with counterclaim. Do you happen to know which grade that kid was in?
I could tell you. I can go back and find that for you.
Okay.
I can find the specific pilot location and the grade.
I would love to know that, because I think we all would, because if that child's in the lower, that's very powerful, because in a lot of ways they don't even have an awareness of that until they're far along. So kudos to you guys. The second thing, and I know that this particular product that we're using, and this is a good thing, is not gathering data to generate its further responses. Do our teachers and does the district have the opportunity to mine the data that's coming in to inform other decisions? Like, for instance, the counterclaim, if they look at something like that, is it doing things for them to show them different approaches, or do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. So I'm not as familiar with the teacher reporting side, aside from their monitoring of student prompts and the output of that. So a teacher could very easily look at a class and see those prompts and be able to tell specific trends. Certainly, our team could look into whether there are some more detailed reports that could be pulled for that instructional decision piece. One other thing I failed to mention that I really should is a reminder that because Magic School is used here in Greenville County, our Gaggle system overlays that as well. So in addition to our teachers monitoring the chats and whatever trends there are, we also have the security of our Gaggle protocol.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of power in this, and I appreciate the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stevens. I echo the appreciation for this presentation. I'm going to, full admission, this Gen Xer struggles with this. Like, I don't really understand it completely. As a side note, is there a possibility we could get I hate to use the word demonstration, but I would really like to see this actually, how it's used in the
Absolutely.
classroom.
Yep.
I don't necessarily need to be in the classroom, but I don't know how to, at some future date.
We can make
because
that happen.
If we're going to continue to have these conversations and drive policy, et cetera, I think we need to, as a board, understand it in real time a little bit better. This is a great start, but that would help me, I know, personally. To that end, my question, or my questions are around the Smart Social. Is this a new partnership that we have, or have we had this? I'm just not
No,
familiar.
we've actually had it for at least 2 years. I think we're entering our 3rd year with them.
Okay.
So this is, we are really advocating and pushing this information out into schools and asking principals to advocate, especially because their alignment of their topics and the work that we are doing go hand in hand. So it is not a new partnership, but it is something that we are continuing. We are just really ramping up awareness of it.
So it says on here that there's monthly parent events where they talk about different
Yes.
things. Is this something that we are for lack of a better, communicating, advertising within our schools, and then are we getting good
Yes.
attendance at these things? Because
Yes.
the other, to go with that, I see some apps listed here that aren't part of this conversation, AI, Snapchat for one,
Correct.
Instagram.
Correct.
I'm assuming some of these topics,
Yes.
monthly topics, might include safe usage of those and other things. 'Cause, you know, these are
Absolutely.
all,
Absolutely.
as the parent of 3 kids and 2 in particular that,
Yeah.
I'm glad to see it, but I would like to know a little bit more about how we're,
So we actually
Communicating
began
that.
working and doing our strategic planning with the Smart Social platform in the summer. And we identified target topics for each month specific to things that we know our students and families are struggling with. Online bullying, appropriate use of social media, appropriate use of chatbots, and oversharing of information. Students tend to not consider those types of things. And so we identified those topic areas. We actually began to then identify district and school personnel that we thought would be great representatives to share their experience, including ombudsman, district leadership, principals from all levels, to join those monthly sessions. And we also then, prior to the sessions, we meet and do 2 planning sessions with the Smart Social team to review the content specific to Greenville County, to ensure that nothing is provided to our families that is outside of our expectations for appropriate technology use, and to be sure that whatever is delivered is in line with our policies.
You probably, because it's been long ago, this is year 4 or year 3?
I'm aware of year 3, but it maybe have come right out of COVID.
If I recall correctly, we started this right toward the end of the pandemic, but really having less to do with that than the fact we don't have enough people to go out and do these presentations. You all may recall Rick Floyd does a lot of these. He goes and does talks to PTAs, faculties. We got like a handful of people. So there's no way to go out and present this kind of thing to the degree it needs to be presented by people that are extremely knowledgeable in that area. So we started this contract with Smart Social right there toward the end of the COVID. And initially, they really provided kind of all the content, but it evolved pretty quickly into them including our people in it. So this has this huge multiplier effect. Like tonight, we can reach every PTA member in the entire school district, as opposed to trying to send somebody around that it might take 4 years to get to all the PTAs. Most importantly, we got extremely positive feedback and have consistently gotten that level of feedback from the people who attend them. Being helpful, worthwhile, informative, it's been a really strong asset for us.
We are excited this year too. We will be able to include Inter-High Council as part of our stakeholder group. So we will be able to get student feedback on the topics, and with parent permission, may be able to also include some of those students in our monthly sessions with administrators.
Probably the last time we talked about this level was like the budget 3 years ago, 4 years ago. So it wouldn't immediately come to mind.
okay, well, I just appreciate that. So we're basically leaving it up to the individual schools at every level? Or are we doing this for middle and high only?
Talking about the Smart Social?
Yes, I
it
mean, I'm
cuts
just-
it-
I'm just-
It's all levels.
Okay,
And it's pushed out really from us directly to the school community. Now, certainly the school can reinforce it. They can send a reminder, like I'll let them do their message on Sunday afternoon, but it comes straight out from us.
And information went to school counselors specifically several weeks ago, and we've communicated with principals. Our communications team at the district level also is part of that group that meets with us monthly. So there is district level communication as well.
so is this on, like, our website, or, for
The
example, if I
information
wanted to
about it?
share information, since this is happening tonight, if I wanted to share information on my social media for parents,
Yes.
would I be able to publish a,
Yes, let me,
link to it or something?
connect with Matt Moore to see exactly the easiest way to push that out so that your user link, because this is specific to Greenville, we control the link and the QR code to make sure that we don't have people who may not be a part of our
Okay.
Greenville community.
Okay.
Or people with a different set of norms participating in that. So let me get with Matt and I will provide that for you by the conclusion of today's meeting.
thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. I appreciate this presentation, and like others, I think it's very exciting, and I think it's time to come on board with it. And like Ms. Mosley said, that she would like to engage with the platform, and we could personally utilize that. And I'll just say to the board, if there's enough interest, that we can plan a workshop for that purpose. I think that would be a great thing for us to be able to do, and I see a lot of nodding heads, so we will do that. You mentioned, Dr. Stevens, that a lot of other states have been using this for a while, and we're following them and learning what they're doing well and their mistakes they're making so that we can avoid that. And I appreciate that kind of deep research to help us be more effective in what we do. I'm curious, at our own state here in South Carolina, are we leading the way in artificial intelligence? Or are other districts also coming on board with this? Where do we fall on that? I know that we are a cutting edge district, so I was just curious about where we are in the process.
We are very consistent with the other large districts in the state. Because of the South Carolina artificial intelligence standards, that gave us the opportunity to begin to embed courses that address the intro to AI components. The use of AI for teacher platforms has been widely used for probably going into 2 years now. The student access to artificial intelligence is something that we are pretty consistently in the rollout plan, the implementation plan with other large districts in South Carolina. I would say we are probably further ahead than some of the smaller districts who do not have the committed team to be able to embed it into curriculum maps and to be able to deeply vet and provide the additional summer training. So they may be slightly behind us with some of those components.
Thank you. And Ms. Leventis Wells mentioned that she was thankful for the parent and student virtual section. And I would also like to say that I'm thankful for that. I think that sends the right message to our parents and to our students, and I hope that we will give more opportunities like that as we move along. And also even perhaps for those schools who do not have a guest present to talk about AI, if we consider perhaps filming that footage and putting that out there for parents as a resource, perhaps in Backpack, so that we continue to educate our parents and all those involved. So again, thank you for an excellent job, and I look forward to seeing this unfold.
Ms. Brett is available on Zoom and has some questions, I think. Sort of. Yeah, that's good.
I do have a couple of questions specifically about Magic School. Can you tell me a little more about maybe who is running the back end of their AI, how we chose Magic School, and even right now I am on their website looking at their solutions, and I see they do academic content, lesson plans, report card comments, all kinds of things that seem to, if you want to say enhance what the teachers are doing, you can, but it kind of feels like it's somewhat taking away some of the things that the teachers do. So maybe, do you mind explaining to me how you chose Magic School AI, who runs Magic School AI, and how exactly these teachers are, in fact, using these solutions?
So teachers have actually had access to Magic School AI outside of Greenville County. It is a widely used resource for teacher-created materials. And so that access was not necessarily dependent on Greenville County schools for the teacher availability. A teacher could have accessed that outside of Greenville County prior to this year. What we committed to was ensuring that the training that teachers received allowed them to be able to efficiently use the tool and to use it in a way that did not dilute their effectiveness as a teacher and did not alter the instructional delivery. We really are working very hard, and our teachers in Greenville County are very adept at understanding a high-quality teacher cannot be replaced. The impact of a high-quality teacher, that is the most important thing in a classroom setting. And so regardless of technology, the teacher needs to understand their standards. They need to understand what those standards mean, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and how they know if a student has mastered it. So this resource does not replace any of that required teacher expertise. this resource from the teacher aspect would provide them with alternative suggestions, maybe on activities or ways that they could engage students or ways that they might be able to create different groupings based on topics. It allows teachers to expand their thinking beyond the standards and the rigor to how am I going to make this effective for my students? How am I going to take this content and differentiate it to meet the diverse needs of the students in my class? And how do I do that in a quick, efficient, targeted way? But at the end, the human component is required. The teacher has to go into a system, regardless of whether it's Magic School AI or any other generative AI, and evaluate the output to ensure that it's aligned with the standards, that it meets that rigor, that it is on target, and that it is delivered in a way that students can access. So this platform will allow you to be more efficient and generate ideas quicker, but it absolutely does not replace the thinking and the expertise of the teacher in that classroom. As far as who owns Magic School AI, I'll have to do some research into that, as it is as far as I know, it is a standalone resource that was developed by educators, and so those resources are vetted by their team, which of course has then been vetted subsequently by our team. So I can get more specific information if you'd like to know that. And did I forget another question? I apologize.
I don't know, I feel like I did. Magic AI running, does it run its platform on Azure or AWS or is this its own actual AI learning material itself that they have actually written software and developed?
Can I repeat that question back to you, because I'm not sure I heard you correctly. Are you asking who developed the software content for Magic School AI? Yeah. Right. So no, there is no data harvesting as a part of this resource, meaning that there is no student input collected, used for trend analysis for later responses. Meaning, so the teacher creates the assignment, creates the parameters, identifies the specific tools that students will use to engage with that identified content, and it doesn't go beyond that. And at the conclusion of that, there's actually a very brief period of time, obviously, where teachers can review those responses, and that data is not harvested. The system does not learn from that data to prepare for future assignments.
Well, I think that's great. Thank you for answering my questions. I was thinking that that's something great, but I will text those in. Thank you.
Great, but if I have more, I will text.
Thank you, Ms. Brett. Does anyone else have questions or comments? No? Okay, great. Thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is item 3.02, Innovative and Honors Course Approvals. Dr. Royster, do you want to talk about that?
I'll speak just briefly to it, and then Dr. Stevens can answer any questions you all might have, if any. What you see listed are the Air Force, Army, and Navy JROTC Level 3 and Level 4 courses, and an honors level, which recognizes the significant work that students put in that are enrolled in those courses. It's one of the best leadership development classes that we offer in the school district. We're pleased to be able to recommend to you today to approve these at an honors course level.
Ms. Doolin? I'd like to make a motion to approve the local board courses as presented.
Is there any discussion before we vote? Does anyone have questions? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And that concludes the instruction portion of today's committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Doolin. Our fourth matter of business is administration, and Ms. Morrison will be chairing this section. And Ms. Morrison Fair, I give you the floor at this time.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In addition to the wonderful rollout on AI, we now have an opportunity to listen to the report on our summer training. Before Mrs. Cap comes forth, Dr. Royster, would you have any comments?
Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Fair. On occasion, people will ask us what we do all summer. It's not surprising to anybody in this room, probably. People still ask you, well, what do y'all do in the summer when school's out? So as you all know, we do all kinds of things to close out one year, prepare for the next year. But one of the most significant things that we do is a huge amount of training because of time availability in the summer, offerings for teachers, classified personnel, leadership. So a whole range of trainings that we provide through the summer months. You heard in Dr. Stevens' presentation about AI, a course in utilization of AI by teachers through Summer Academy or the Technology Institute, but that's just one very small piece of all the trainings that we do. So in the next presentation, you're going to hear about across the board, the types of trainings that we offer, the number of participants that take part in those trainings, and how it cuts across all facets of the school system. A little bit later, a week away in the board meeting, we'll talk a little bit in the superintendent's report about other significant things we do throughout the summer to prepare for the year. But this focuses today on one of our biggest efforts in the summer, and that is training of employees throughout the system at all levels and throughout all departments. Ms. Cap?
Yes, you were. You know you got this. There you go. Thank you, Dr. Royster. Dr. Royster, thank you, and to the Board of Trustees, good morning. We appreciate the opportunity to share the investment of our teachers, administrators, operational, and support staff to prepare for an impactful school year. Goal 2 of our True North plan is focused on a premier workforce. We are committed to develop and retain exemplary personnel who benefit from intentional induction and support, ongoing skill advancement, and opportunities to develop leadership. This summer, in nearly 1,100 sessions, 19,000 participants invested almost 127,000 hours in training. This morning, I'm going to highlight the focus of this learning provided by teacher leaders, school and district personnel, and local or university partners. Our assistant superintendents kick off the summer hosting school principals and assistant principals, supporting collaboration and planning for fall. This sharing and refining of processes continues throughout the summer. In 3-day-long seminars, 280 persons prepared by developing standard operating procedures, sharing effective practices, and clarifying excellence in leadership. Very briefly, in the bottom tray of each of these 2 slides, the one before it, when you hear the word participants, that is a duplicate count. That is how many seats were filled across multiple sessions. When you see the word persons, that is individuals who attended a given training, and that will follow throughout this presentation. Thank you. So our principal induction program is underway.
This summer, at the start, we held 4 sessions for 9 new and new to Greenville principals. Our HR finance functions were clearly explained, key expectations, planning for a strong start, and understanding instructional leadership responsibilities were the focus of these 4 days. Our learning sessions in principal induction continue through the year. Each new principal is mentored by an experienced principal, and network opportunities support them through their second year in that role. Members of our second cohort of the Executive Leader Institute spoke with superintendents of the Sandhills and coastal regions of South Carolina during their time at SCASA this summer. They gained much insight about the role and its challenges in both small and large districts. Among this cohort of 9 leaders, we have 9, and there are newly hired leaders at the district level and department managers and principals who aspire to lead at a broader level of impact. Key learnings across the year will include coaching-based supervision, systems improvement, and analysis of executive-level challenges. And you will see this year's cohort there at the bottom of this slide. Our annual Summer Academy supports teachers, leaders, and administrative support personnel to implement practices aligned with the GCS instructional protocol and the priority practices for instructional leaders. Nearly 1,300 persons attended across 3 days in over 400 sessions, investing 8,200 hours to learn and prepare for the school year. The next several slides will highlight the Summer Academy sessions with the highest participation, and that will be true for each of these slides. By name sessions are the highest attended sessions. The classroom environment must be conducive to learning and afford every student a sense of safety, belonging, and purpose. Over 500 participants increased their understanding of essential structures, communication, support, and intervention practices for positive and productive classrooms. A teacher must not only know their content, but understand the strengths and needs of their students. 100 sessions supported these essentials for over 1,300 participants. Highlights here include ELA curriculum and resources, math curriculum and resources, and a focus on power standards, those standards within the curriculum that are critical to master grade level content and to connect to future learning. Ongoing assessment and feedback is critical to support the highest levels of learning. 25 sessions advanced teacher ability to fit their instruction to challenge and support every student. Over 60 sessions devoted to engaging and rigorous instruction, particularly in ELA and math, along with effective use of instructional resources to stretch our strongest learners and raise the level of learning for those who may need support in specific skills were held. Careful planning and lesson design promotes maximum attainment of content and skills while addressing the needs of every child. 14 sessions supported this effort with a strong focus on data-informed, collaborative planning in professional learning communities or teams. Finally, Summer Academy sessions support school leaders with effective management and instructional practices. Secretaries and bookkeepers had a comprehensive schedule of essential functions, and we served over half the school bookkeepers and secretaries together on site across 2 days. On Track Greenville's Partner Fair offered a view of community resources available for our students and staff as well. Over 200 persons attended our Upstate Technology Conference, tallying over 1,600 hours of learning. This two-day event focuses on effective integration of technology resources to improve learning and efficiency for the adults. Highlighted were effective use of artificial intelligence, and on-site student ambassadors supported teachers to see possibilities for classroom use of tech tools. Throughout the summer, district specialists and department leaders provide sessions to advance the knowledge and skill of teachers and leaders. These sessions seated over 2,500 participants who invested nearly 23,000 hours. Concentrations included ELA, math, and trauma-informed practices. Our robust college and career readiness efforts served 190 participants who planned instruction, planned support for new teachers, and earned credentials to support their work. Included were career facilitator certification for nearly 100 employees. You will recall our initiative to train all 4K through 3rd grade teachers in the science of reading through a curriculum called LETTERS. 1,548 individual teachers and administrators completed 2 or more modules each of the 2-year program to afford deeper understanding of how students learn to read and the reading and writing practices that will ensure each child does so at high levels. You can view the content strands on this side. Principals and instructional coaches are also actively planning and developing staff to meet their school's priorities. Over 11,000 hours were invested to strengthen professional learning communities, student learning strategies, and behavioral structures to support those. Many sessions were follow-up to ELA and math training in earlier sessions through the summer. Professional learning opportunities are also provided through grants and community partnerships. We are proud to say that our first cohort of the Community Collaboration for Counselors program has successfully graduated 12 master's or EDS level persons from Clemson's counselor education program, and each of them has been hired full-time to serve our schools in the 25-26 school year. 39 schools will pair artists with teachers in the Smart Arts units this year, and many participate in small group book studies across the summer. Clemson University prepared 5 additional master teachers as well to host 5th-year teacher residents in our schools. We train teachers to provide essential support to early career teachers. You'll see key trainings, evaluation trainings, and mentor training available there. The LEAD Institute, a year-round development for aspiring instructional coaches and administrators, held their first session with 40 participants this summer. We provide certification program through the NIAAA to all new athletic directors, establishing a standard of quality and safety in all athletic opportunities. Key to Ed facilitator training was a highlight this summer. All principals trained in April, and now all AAs and APs are working from the same standards of practice. New at secondary was the AP Development Series, refreshing and refining practices for effective management. Level breakout sessions towards the end of the summer ensure common understanding and implementation as we enter the school year. Remembering that schools do not open just because all of the teachers and leaders learn to be even better the following year, But our operations side of our business worked very hard to prepare those schools to open and to run effectively. Our building services and maintenance staff set the physical conditions for schools to serve at optimal levels. Custodial College sets the bar for efficient and exemplary performance and ensures strong stewardship of our equipment and our facilities. That would include our grounds. The Transportation Division recertified 650 drivers, trained new drivers and coaches, and 9 aides for special needs students. All drivers and aides trained on ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences, supporting knowledge of students inside the appropriate structures for safe transport to and from school. Targeted were student management and relationships along with safety. Again, safety is at the forefront of training for our assistant managers and managers in our food and nutrition services staff. Cafeterias were open to the community this summer with 54,000 breakfasts and 107,000 lunches served. You can see the highlights of summer training provided by our HR, finance, and procurement offices to ensure understanding and compliance with required processes. Support for our new and returning staff was provided. The extended day program requirements and best practices were reviewed or oriented to new personnel, and substitutes were trained or refreshed on best practices and support. Active shooter training was hosted at Woodmont Middle School this year with 73 participants, co-hosted by the Sheriff's Department and engaging employees to conduct simulations. This training supports the highest standards of safety and preparedness across our district. Complementing the active shooter training was orientation, planning, and review of processes at our larger reunification site, and included 3 simulated rounds of reunification there at that site. We just graduated our second partnered cohort of impact leaders from Clemson University. 22 are in their internships this year, and a third cohort of 13 has just begun. That's actually a 4th cohort. 11 of the so far 30 graduates from that Clemson program of impact leadership are already in AA or AP positions. This fall, we will begin our first cohort with Furman University. All of these are tuition-assisted programs, and those participating commit to 3 years with Greenville County Schools after graduation. Our GATE program is supporting 68 new teachers for our classrooms this year. In 11 days of a pre-service institute, teachers learn critical startup skills, plan alongside their coach, and then join other new teachers in the induction institute. Institute strands are listed here. Training and support continue across the school year. Our Year 2 GATE teachers deepened their instructional and management skill in a 2-day institute alongside coaches as well. We're very excited to celebrate the success of our GATE teachers. Just this year, Drew Johnson was selected as Teacher of the Year at Fisher Middle School. John Moldovan was one of 4 first-class teacher nominees and was the secondary first-class winner. And we had 2 emerging teacher nominees this year who were GATE participants. Our Induction Institute provides a strong start and competitive pay for new teachers. Highlights here include targeted learning for those entering the classroom and advancing skills or advancing skill development for those moving into their second year. Our 12 new international teachers are enjoying support as they enter our schools. Welcomed at the airport by principals and district staff, their orientation extends beyond traditional learning sessions to optional gatherings at the county library, anything to learn about our community and to navigate it, and sharing good food and resources. Some of you have been present for some of those events in a previous year. The summer was an exciting time for our Elevate schools, Alexander Elementary and Lakeview Middle School. Faculty and staff came together to celebrate their successes, continue developing a connected community committed to students, and building on their strengths and meeting the needs of their children. Community partners again shared resources and perspective in support of student achievement and well-being in that Elevate week. Just before students arrive, with staff all back at work, teachers collaborate in district-wide professional learning. Over 2,700 teachers participated in 100 sessions, earning nearly 7,400 hours of recertification credit. And that's recertification points in the portal for those folks. Key sessions included ParaSharp training, co-teaching with multilingual learners, training for counselors, psychologists, and behavior interventionists, and an all-arts collaboration day. Annually, we review and update understanding of the processes that ensure the reliable and effective function of our system in the academic and operational leadership meeting. In the follow-up leadership summit, Dr. Royster provides his charge for the school year. With a focus on building leadership capacity, Dr. Royster encouraged all of us to broaden the perspective and build leadership capacity of all of our employees, to develop leaders who share ownership of the mission, to invest our time and focus on high-value activity, to multiply our impact and maximize our results. With a theme of lead the way, we were encouraged to connect in a culture of trust and shared responsibility, to invest to further the talent already in place, and to advance that talent not yet tapped. Also, to empower leadership through personalized challenges and support. Our year needs to be all about leading the way so others can lead, and ensuring that principals and department leaders spend their time developing other people and in high-value activity, interacting in classrooms and in other areas that will further the mission. Thank you, Dr. Royster, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you so very much for that report, and now we exactly know what you did during the summer.
Can shout it.
I have two people for questions. Anybody else? Okay. Dr. Presley.
Thank you, Ms. Cap. So my first question about, and I love the language that y'all use, and I always do, as far as the acquisition of new learning in these sessions and a plan for implementation. Yes. Because that ensures that our folks leave with, okay, I've got this new learning, now what am I going to do with it in whatever aspect. And this is the tough part, and it always has been, but the actual implementation of the new learning, when it occurs, and monitoring its success and potential impact on students, student learning. I know we can't isolate all of those variables to determine if that was the thing. But loosely, do we have any mechanisms in place to just piggyback on that learning in summer to see how our teachers or our participants are actually implementing? And then the other part of that, and could this potentially be something that could be woven into existing PLC structures in the buildings for these individuals?
The answer is yes, and I appreciate that you brought up PLCs. First, remember that from the start, the whole theme of Summer Academy is based in our instructional protocol. The instructional protocol are the key practices that we hope to see in the classroom, and as we observe for implementation, we're observing the impact on the children in the room, not only in the moment, but through benchmark assessments and through summative assessments. Our PLCs, or professional learning communities, gather to look at how are we doing, how are our children doing, then here's what we said we were going to do. We committed through this training, as an example, to implement with fidelity the LETRS practices that we have learned. So what are we seeing? How are we doing? Has an instructional coach or administrator been in, given us feedback? What do we see in the data in that PLC? And what might we be missing? Who next door is really getting strong results with essentially the same children? And where do we need to go look? So that whole professional learning community process is part of really a multifaceted follow-up on the priority learnings that we provide across our summer. No longer, and I'd say really never from the start, but tighter than ever before, what we offer to teachers is very carefully reviewed and very much intended and targeted to align to the priorities at hand. The strategic plan, priorities, clearly LETRS and everything you see coming out of that is really strong. And the evidence is in the doing and the measuring of the result of the implementation.
One step in that Ms. Cap, I think, didn't mention, or I may not have caught it. When principals do instructional walks, then these are the things they're looking for. So if you talk about, Karen hit on trainings during the summer, then those should be fleshed out during their professional learning, in their professional learning communities. But when the principals, assistant principals, instructional coaches are doing instructional walks, they should be looking for those things and providing feedback to the teacher on whether or not they saw them, and if they saw them, did they see them being implemented appropriately. The LETRS is a pretty clean example. It's pretty easy to do because you got folks going in there looking to see, are you applying that training? Then we got test scores at the end of the year that'll show, did that application seem to make a difference? Some of the others are not as easy to track. They're observable, but they're not as easy to tie directly to objective data as far as test scores, as you know. Math you can, ELA you can. Get beyond that, a little more difficult to do till you get to EOCs at the high school level.
Thank you, Dr. Royster. That would be a tall order based on the hundreds of offerings that we had over the summer for a principal to be able to track that, which is why I asked about the PLC structure and how, because that should be, and I believe we set a good standard for that as far as that being individualized for our folks.
Some of that too would be courses that there's teacher interest in knowing more about it. So it's not all necessarily going back to what we have said. You need to make sure you have these things in place. Some of it's teacher interest. Some of it would be a principal saying to a teacher, you need to go attend this. There's a specific, perhaps weakness there that you need to strengthen. Then that principal needs to follow up with that teacher when they come back, so I'm sure they will. If I sent you to receive some some help with classroom management, for example, then I want to see that you're putting those things in place when you come back next year, having gone to that training this summer. So some of it's individualized, it's directed by the principal. Some of it's individualized self-selection from a teacher or other employee. And then some of it just fits into the overall framework of we want to make sure that this is how we're going about doing our business.
Thank you. Because we all know that the sit and get days of a 1 hour or a 2 hour or even a day long with no support for implementation on the tail end is not serving any purposes. So I appreciate the clarification on that. The next question, the focus on the power standards, and I get it. We got a lot of standards. How does that focus on power standards, how does that jive with the SCDE's Office of Assessment's ability to and commitment to testing the depth and breadth of each standards document? So if we are focusing on power standards and we have a very well-meaning teacher who grasps that, and these standards have been identified, how are we ensuring that the testing mechanism for our state is not going to throw curveballs that could potentially, and I don't have an answer for that, so I'm hoping y'all do, because you can write your book on that and retire.
So if I could speak to that.
Thank you.
Our expectation for power standards is that those are the standards that teachers have committed to students mastering before moving on to the following grade. They are standards that we have determined students need a proficiency and foundation to be successful moving forward. So there are non-negotiable standards. We teach all standards. And so teachers are still required to cover the entirety of their content and those standards, but those specific standards we know are foundational standards for future success. And so we are committed to ensuring that in addition to the other standards required, those we are committed to returning to frequently throughout the year to make sure that students have that foundation before they move forward.
Just to your point, Dr. Presley, there are too many for a teacher to thoroughly cover. But those standards that are foundational, they need to make sure they've thoroughly covered them. You know, there's a dual purpose there. One is so they can be successful at the next course, because almost all of these are sequential. And then those are the ones they will give them a better chance on being successful on the testing, even if they don't get to all the other standards, or they don't recall, perhaps. Maybe they spent 15 minutes on one. That's not going to be really helpful when they take a test in the spring, but the power standards and spending time on them will be.
Thank you. That question's as old as time, and I appreciate y'all's continued attention to it. Last question, the letters training. What's our progress with getting, I mean, I know we've got new folks all the time, but what's our progress with our core groups getting trained, and with that I believe it's 2 years, Ms. Catton?
It's a 2-year program. It is a required 120-hour investment on the part of each of those teachers. The data that I reviewed tells me that there were a handful of folks, I'm going to call it 12, in fact it was 12, who completed through Module 8 as of this summer, but the majority of the summer sessions, the highest numbers, were in Module 5 and 6. So they, of course, move on to 7 and 8 across the year to complete. And then we began some Module 1, Module 2, and in the fall they start hitting 3 and 4. So it's scrolling. It's a lot of folks and a lot to learn, and every module takes them at least 16 to 17 hours. It's quite an investment.
Dr. Presley, at the conclusion of this year, approximately 80 to 85% of our staff will have been through both years of training, going back from when we began it 4 years ago. Our first session was 4 years ago.
Yeah, we had the first schools, I think, that were in it 4 years ago, and then the large scale 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to recognize, too, the significant commitment the board made 2-3 years ago, that we're able to compensate these teachers above and beyond. I think the state offers $500 And then with you all's approval, we were able to utilize fund balance to further compensate them, because as Karen pointed out, that's a significant amount of time. And they have no choice about that. That in order to maintain their employment and their certification at that level, they have to be letters trained. So we're most appreciative to be able to recognize that in at least a small monetary way, but well beyond what the state's putting into it.
And last question, I promise. So the perception by some, that we were here, and with letters and a more heightened, in-depth focus, and very necessary on phonics because we were missing that for a minute. And I know this is probably a loose assessment here, but how are our folks with understanding that we've not swung completely out in another direction? You did a beautiful presentation a couple of years back on how we were handling that. What's the status of that? Do we have recalcitrance, resistance on some of our folks' parts, or is it kind of coming in a pretty authentic way?
I think that we have soft data that indicates our teachers are valuing the training they've received from letters. Specifically, in addition to the comments that they've made in appreciation, we have 4th and 5th grade teachers and teachers outside of ELA instruction who are requesting the training. And it does not have anything to do with the stipend, because they may or may not be eligible. So they value the training itself. And at the PLC level and at the school leadership level, we are seeing best practices in place, and teachers, I think, are valuing the training and the quality of instruction. Year 1 of letters training is a little drier than year 2. Year 2 is when it really becomes applicable to the classroom and teachers really see the value for that time investment. So I would expect that as we close out this fall and the majority of our teachers finish year 2, we'll have even further support for that.
Thank y'all so much.
Dr. Presley, if I can add to that with the board's patience, we had someone submitted to us some comments, teacher comments about letters, and I'll share from a teacher at Ellen Woodside just her direct words. Letters training has been one of the best training opportunities teachers and instructional leaders have been given in my 22 years of education. It's given literacy teachers the knowledge needed to understand how to best teach students how to read. Teachers are learning not only how to teach it, but they're learning the importance of understanding how the brain works. From decoding words to comprehending a text, I have heard from many teachers that after training of each unit in letters, they have a much better understanding of the student needs in their classroom and how to provide beneficial instruction for all students. There's been an overwhelming agreement, she says, among teachers in the school where I work that letters training has been the most beneficial development they have ever received when it comes to reading instruction. And that's really the voice of that faculty, I think.
Thank you, Ms. Cap. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, my questions will be a little bit shorter because Dr. Presley covered some of mine, in particular to letters training. So if I wrote down correctly, you said at the end of this year, 80 to 85% of our teachers will have been trained completely, meaning the 2 year. Okay, so the other 20 to 15 to 20%, are they like in year 1?
So every year annually, we'll have teachers who come to us from out of district or out of state that may be either in year 1 or year 2. So we absorb them into our training module. We are getting to the point where most college graduates are graduating with letters training in place, so we will not have to provide that ourselves. But for the foreseeable 2 years, we will need to have a pipeline of offerings to be able to provide that year 1 or year 2 from people who come, especially from out of South Carolina.
Okay, so you hit on that. So I was remembering back when we first got our letters presentation a while back that the colleges were now being required in the state, right?
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily mean Are other states starting to require it too, or it just kind of depends?
Some of
on-
our neighboring states have actually required it prior to South Carolina. North Carolina was more aggressive in its rollout than we were, so they are a little ahead of us with that.
So they're coming in with they're
With
coming in
both years,
completely
with the
trained.
certification attached to their, with the certification added to their teaching certificate, yes.
And that's a requirement, and is that,
A lot
that's
of the
not a
college
proviso,
programs.
that's like going, that's,
Correct. That is required in South
Ongoing.
Carolina for kindergarten through third grade teachers who teach ELA.
okay, so ultimately, that saves us money
Correct.
for training in this, okay. Is this the year, Dr. Royster, that we're gonna see maybe some real test data about how effective this program is? Because, I mean, I remember when you did the presentation, there was a lot of comments from teachers that mirrored what you just read about it being one of the most significant trainings they've ever received. I'm just curious as to when,
Should see some in the data we get back this year.
Yes, sir.
Susan, but maybe more so in the data we get back
Next
next
year.
year,
Next
which
year.
would be
Okay.
this year's data,
gotcha, okay,
if that makes sense.
yes, okay. Thank you so much, I
I
appreciate that.
think preliminarily, it appears
Preliminarily, yes, it appears that our strategies have been effective.
Okay, thank you so much.
the data's still
Correct.
Embargoed.
Embargoed.
Ms. Mosley. Mr. Cochran.
Thank you. I noticed two of the things that were listed in the training were trauma-informed practices and conscious discipline. I'm wondering if somebody can tell me, as far as implementation of those, are those things that are being mandated by the district or by individual schools, or is that a teacher-by-teacher implementation?
Certain schools came on board with conscious discipline by choice several years back. The district supports that. Over time, more schools have chosen to do that. I don't have those numbers with me, but can report those to you. That is a school choice. Generally, it is adopted by a full school faculty. It's a model where the adults are real clear about their expectations, but also very thoughtful about how they interact with and respond to problems presented when a child is having a problem. So it in no way diminishes the order or safety in a classroom, but in fact supports the teacher to know how to respond when there is an issue so that the response of the teacher and the original setup from the teacher does not further the concern. We can react and speak out real sharply in the moment, and sometimes that's okay, but other times that's not what is helpful. So it's very much a level of awareness and done across the school, and it is by choice by school.
Do we have any data so far on maybe how the discipline is going at those schools compared to those that have not implemented conscious discipline?
I do not have it here. I know that we have some data from the teacher responses and interactions with it, and I can check to see if there is actual data in regards to disciplinary practice and the change in the culture or disciplinary numbers at the school. I'll have to ask probably Dr. McCreary's office about that.
I think this goes back to, I don't remember how many years ago, it was an initiative by the State Department of Education that some schools signed on to. We've never mandated it in Greenville County schools. There may be other districts that have, we've never mandated it.
I think a moment ago you were speaking specifically to conscious discipline.
Yes.
So with the trauma-informed practices, again, is that something that the district is looking to mandate, or specific schools, or just at this point individual teachers?
ACEs, which is Adverse Childhood Experiences. That's having an awareness of the kinds of things that a child can bring with them in what they call the invisible backpack. You know, here I come, there's a lot going on in my home, okay? And those might be experiences that make it difficult for a child, either subconsciously, currently, or later on. Trauma-informed practices are how we respond in a way and how we set up the conditions in classrooms in a way that we can see if a child is, as we sometimes call it, being triggered internally to something very small, and it might become larger for that child than the typical child. And so in a similar fashion to conscious discipline and the adult awareness and adult consciousness of how they interact, teachers or anyone who chooses to be involved would know how to manage that in a way so that they are de-escalating negative behaviors or triggered behaviors, and actually helping that child get themselves back to what I call centered, kind of get yourself back together and be able to proceed forward. We ask that all staff participate in the ACEs training and in the trauma-informed practices training. We do that because we want to ensure we know our children and know what potential impacts children have. We've never had anybody say, I'm not doing that, I refuse to understand that. It is very much about awareness and understanding and being very intentional about how we set our classrooms up and how we interact, all the while maintaining order, a climate conducive to learning, and safety in the classroom.
I believe some people on occasion confuse those things with a replacement for sanctions for misbehavior. And they cannot be, nor should they ever be, a replacement for sanctions for misbehavior. This is a level of understanding to try to minimize the circumstances that feed misbehavior. But if you choose to misbehave, you suffer the consequences of your choice. So it's not intended to replace, if you do this, this is what happens. Kind of a simplistic example might be, perhaps you've observed this in your career as a teacher. Sometimes a teacher can respond to something in a way that escalates a student's behavior as opposed to in a way that doesn't further that behavior. And it's important to understand the way to de-escalate a situation, and some of these things directly relate to de-escalating instead of escalating a behavior. But I think the biggest misunderstanding people have is this somehow is replacing the system of consequences for violating rules, and it cannot do that. If it does that, we will not have a disciplinary system. It's to help people understand, well, here's the reasoning behind this. If you understand that, you may approach this differently at the outset. It should not affect what happens to that student, again, if they choose to misbehave or choose to break clearly stated rules.
Without objection, I would like to extend for 10 minutes so that you can have enough time to ask your questions.
Thank you. So have all of our teachers that at least have been on staff for a year or two at this point, have they all been trained at this point in trauma-informed practices?
All of our teachers, I would say.
It's probably not so that all have, but data can be pulled and documented. I mean, it is documented.
I think one of the most recent efforts we've done is using this with bus drivers.
Right.
Running some discipline pilots to improve discipline on the buses. And the feedback from the drivers in the initial round has been very positive. That's helped them to better learn how to approach students. Not changing the standards or the requirements for their behavior, but how better for them to deal with it.
Thanks. My final question, I think this is on slide 9, but it says maximizing Amira data. I don't know if it's Amira or Amira actually, but data for literacy success, AI tools for customizing reading passages and group materials. Could you explain to me exactly how that Amira program works?
Like to ask Susan to do that, if you will. Dr. Stevens.
So Amira is a resource that was provided to us from the State Department. It is one of our approved screeners for our primary students, and that is a tutorial program that measures a variety of different metrics as students read into a microphone, and the teacher then plays back that recording and uses that data to be able to determine a reading level, appropriate differentiation, whether it's extension, whether it's remediation opportunities. They can use that information to form small group instruction to identify students that may need to work collaboratively on things. So there is, it is a resource that is embedded with our textbook adoption, and our teachers use it depending on the grade level, at a variety of different checkpoints throughout the year.
Specifically, how does the customizing the reading passages, how does that work?
So depending on the student level, depending on the needs, depending on the number of errors, depending on the frequency and the fluidity of student reading, the passages would differentiate so that, again, that the student is challenged, appropriately given comprehension questions. And so all of those paragraphs or short stories used to be, Mr. Cochran, you remember our book rooms, that we had all the little tiny paper copies of stories that we would assign to students to read. This is essentially a digital provision of those stories that are leveled depending on the student's performance during their task.
So going back to what you had said earlier about generative AI, if a student's reading a passage and the Amira decides that they need a easier level or whatever at that point, now, is it pulling from literature that is already out there that we have on our list of?
There is a text bank within the Amira system, which we have access to the titles and the resource list from those passages from that entire platform. So every reading material may look somewhat different. Students actually are provided with a choice. So, for example, if I'm a student and I'm reading and I'm struggling, the Amira system may prompt me to choose from these 5 other stories so that the student has an option to choose something that's high interest for them. And then, but all of those texts are contained within that Amira Houghton Mifflin resource.
Thanks. So the AI is not generating a story on its own for the
Correct. It's not going
kids to
rogue.
read
No,
there.
sir. No, sir.
It's doing the part that years ago the teacher actually
Correct.
had to do.
We used to have to
You
choose
go
that.
back
book.
far enough, the
Right.
teacher would have to give a passage, then individually assess that. Then it moved to the generation where you could buy programs that would already have selected a passage. The student wouldn't select it. It'd be pre-selected. Then it would ask the student a series of questions about the passage. And based on how many of those they answered, it might give them something easier or more difficult to read, and ultimately kind of level it out like that. And this is the latest iteration, which if you look at the first generation and the second generation, now AI is doing what in the first generation the teacher did, and what in that second generation you had to the student had to repeatedly go up and down in the system. It now basically automates all that and makes it function much more efficiently and quickly with less work on the part of the teacher and quite honestly less work on the part of the student. And the other important thing, and Susan said this early on, but we are required to do, I don't know if people actually that aren't sitting in those classrooms understand this, because it sort of gets glossed over. We talk about the test all the time. You have to take a test at the end of the third grade, fourth grade, but we have to do all these benchmarks. Well, for our students at the lowest level, we have to do how many assessments of them, starting with pre-K?
We have 2 required assessments in pre-K required by the state and 3 annual benchmarks for literacy required for kindergarten and 3 required for math. And those results are reported to the state.
So this is in part fulfilling that, but also it's of great value to a teacher in understanding at what level each of their students reads and at what level they will be challenged, because they also need to be, they don't need to be simply reading at their level, they need to be challenged to read at the next level, but you don't want to give them something too challenging that becomes frustrating.
As part of, I guess, State Department of Education, Regulation 43170, where it says each district board shall maintain at all times on its website a complete current list or catalog of all books and other materials that are available to students through any of the district's libraries or media centers. Does this in any way impact that? Do parents, is there a way that the parents can see a list of possible, I realize that you said that sometimes students would get 4 or 5 choices, but is there a way that parents, because I've heard from a parent or 2 that had concerns about this, that they can look and see what materials their child might be reading?
So we actually are generating that list through Houghton Mifflin, through Amira. They have access, obviously, through those titles, and we have access to, it's tens of thousands of excerpts, paragraphs, and then some are short stories, and they are providing us with that list. They are making that available to us.
Now, is that something where some of them are just paragraphs here and there? It seems like that would be something that would be very difficult for parents to be able to go back on their own and actually find those. Is there some way the parents can actually look at those once that list is generated, that they would have access to those paragraphs and all the other reading portions there?
I don't want to misspeak, so let me investigate how we could give parents access to seeing those resources in the building level. I know that there are ways for teachers to be able to search for passages, and obviously we can go back and see anything that a student has had access to from the teacher and administrative level. Making that available to a parent certainly could be done during a conference. Much easier than providing a list of the probably 50,000 titles or excerpts that are in that system, but both can be done. Within that system, the HMH, they know what is within that platform.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Morrison-Fair.
Thank you, Mr. Okay. I will extend without objections. I have just one speaker left for another 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. First, Ms. Cap, I'd just like to say that I am blown away. And as the head of professional development, you're to be commended. If this is the highlights, and it's so broad, all of our employees have an opportunity to be developed. That is excellence. So thank you and all the staff who's involved. I am just extremely pleased. I think we're doing a great job in the area of professional development. As a former educator myself, I really delved into the presentation. In particular, I was interested in instructional delivery because we know that the delivery in the classroom has a lot to do with the outcome of our students and their success. And I was really pleased that under instructional delivery, you had 3 words: strategies, rigor, and engagement. And I know that teachers have a lot of strategies. There's a lot of strategies out there and a lot of platforms. Rigor and engagement are the 2 that are the most difficult. So I'm pleased to see those 2 words there. And I'm glad to see that you had 60 sessions. So that was a lot of sessions to focus on instructional delivery. In particular, I am interested, I know, again, you just have highlights. There's no way that you can list everything. I'm interested in particularly the engagement of students. That's something that I feel very strongly about. And I was wondering if you know if any of the sessions focus on engagement as in integrating the arts into the content to enhance learning and engagement.
Yes, they did. I would have to go back to the full roster, and I can pull by title and then description in a deeper accounting that we have. But that absolutely is so. Active learning, movement to learn, those kinds of things are embedded in a number of the offerings. In addition, you'll recall that the Smart Arts Institute is every summer offering to any school who requests, and there are schools who go multiple times. New people come on board, they make sure that they're partnered with artists sometime during the year. So that is available to any school. I think I mentioned 39 are participating with a partner this year. Last year's number was 42, but the full roster of all the schools who have participated in Smart Arts, let's say over the last 3 to 4 years, is not everyone, but getting a whole lot closer to everyone. That's available to us from Metropolitan Arts Council. But that's going on. We also have some schools who are operating under what is called an Arts Now grant, and so Berea Elementary School and League, of course, has worked with Arts Now for a while. So there are a number of folks who are recognizing and implementing that. The Smart Arts integration model, if you will, is deeply established, and the production or the performance out of units that are standards-based but involve movement, expression in some form, theater, even I can recall units where kids crafted a kaleidoscope out of clay and actually deeply covered 9 standards in 8th grade science. So there's a tremendous amount of benefit, generally located in one content area with a teacher and a working artist.
Thank you for sharing that. That is excellent news, and no need to pull any data from me. You covered it well, and I'm extremely pleased on that. So thank you again so very much for the outstanding work you're doing in professional development. And I'm sure our employees have greatly benefited from participation.
An awful lot of folks contribute to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Morrison-Fair.
Thank you, Dr. Stiles, and thank you, Mrs. Kapp, and to all your team and to Greenville County employees, whoever was a part of this presentation. And I love what you said about our commitment to build the leadership in all of our employees. Thank you very much for that presentation, and this ends administration.
Thank you so much.
Turn it back over to you, Dr. Stiles.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison-Fair. Our 5th matter of business is building and grounds, and Ms. Mosley will be chairing this session. And so, Ms. Mosley, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stiles. Okay, moving right along, we are up to agenda item number 5.01, the facilities project update. My understanding is it's for information only, so the information is there. Do I have any questions from anyone? Okay, Ms. Middleton.
On the roofing projects, I had an opportunity to go by Oakview Elementary School the other day, and, there was the dumpsters out there and the tarps on the roof and all that. And I just wanted to ask, when will the roof be done, number one? And number two, has it interfered with any of the instruction in the school? That's Oakview Elementary.
Okay, Oakview is scheduled to be done sometime in October, probably late October. I'm not aware of any instruction that's been compromised by the by the roofing project. We did have a leak a couple of weeks ago that was corrected, but nothing major that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Middleton, does anybody else have any questions? Dr. Royster, do you have anything to add to facilities?
No, other than, kind of like the summer training, considerable amount of work goes on there through the summer to make sure we got 12.5 million square feet ready for occupancy in the fall and 3,000 acres of grounds. And we occupied 3 very significant buildings, a 1,250 seat addition on Fountain Inn High School, 450 seat addition at Woodland Elementary, and then the opening, as you all were able to tour, of Reedy Laurel. All those went extremely well, and nothing in any of those locations interfered with a smooth start of school for each of those locations. So considerable amount of work. It would be ideal, to Ms. Middleton's question, if we could do all the roofing projects over the summer. There's no way to do that. Our buildings areas are too large that be very difficult to get an entire roofing job done during a 9-week period in the summer. So facilities works very closely with the roofing contractors and with the school to minimize any disruption to instruction that might potentially occur. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, moving right along to 5.02, lease agreement renewal with Share Head Start. It looks like we do have a recommended motion. Would someone like to make that motion?
Well, I motion to approve the proposed lease agreement renewal with Share Head Start.
Thank you so much, Ms. Doolin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Middleton. Any questions? Okay. Without any questions, I know I was making sure we had, because Chuck stepped out. Do we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the motion carries. And that ends facilities and grounds, or buildings and grounds. So turning it back over.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mosley. This concludes our Committee of the Whole agenda for today. I need a motion to adjourn.
Dr. Stiles, can I just make one comment?
Right.
I would just like to say that Dr. Stevens and Ms. Capp's presentations were outstanding. I learned so much, and I think this was a great way to start our school year off. So thank you, and with that being said, I make a motion to adjourn.
Go ahead.
Ms. Fitzer shared with us, as part of a previous request, data on this evening's public training. Am I correct? In email? How do we share that? Because it requires a login. So if I give this to a neighbor of mine or a constituent, what do they need to do in order to participate? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The parent in question would need to register to participate. Okay, thank you. Yeah, correct. Just want to make sure that when the question is asked, we can all answer it correctly. Thank you. Yeah, sorry.
Ms. Leventis Wells has made a motion. Mrs. Doolin has made a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our Committee of the Whole meeting is adjourned at 10:58 a.m. We hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you again for coming. And board members, we do have lunch.
Why they gotta have it cold?